I got a new stick. Yeah, still bigger. And it looks like that school teacher's study now. Yeah, yeah, but this is environment friendly and biodegradable. Nahin, battery less. And does the same thing. Usme also you have to do something. You have to press. So we started the morning with these two fundamental questions for our life. And one was why to live, and the second is how to live. When we look at the why to live, when we open up living, it turns out that we have these four integral dimensions to our living. To look at it, it seems very simple, but when you actually implement it, you will realize that it's very accurate and quite profound. There's this whole material sense. For example, we just had tea, and we came back from tea. Did we drink tea for the satiation or for the pleasure? Is it for hunger or is it for pleasure? Tea, pleasure. Body doesn't need nutrition again. Nasta pehle se tha. And if you look at specifically, if you look at tea, what is the pleasure that's going to we got from the tea? Well, for those of who got known, it's the tannin. It's the chemical in the tea. The chemical in the tea creates a spike in the brain, in one particular chemical in the brain. And then the brain gets used to that spike. So as the level of tannin drops, then we want to restore that balance again. And that's when you feel like having tea again. Which is why then they say that tea is a habit. That if you start drinking it, it's very difficult. So habits are those that are actually, changing the chemistry of the brain, getting the brain used to, like coffee is also like that. Drugs work like that. Nicotine works like that. So things to do with the body. So the tea, of course, was for pleasure. So for those who don't have tea or used to having tea or coffee and you don't have it, you'll get a headache. Or you won't be able to think clearly. The thinking will become foggy. So we came back from this pleasurable sensation of tea and also gave our minds a break. We've been listening for about 1.5 to 2 hours, so it's just nice to like clear the air, right? And not think of anything. Which brings us back to our question. So why do I live? And the answer really is comprehensive happiness. So we're using the word comprehensive because it includes all the states that are, because typically when we think of happiness, what comes to mind is, things and the physical realm. But we don't so much think about or consider the behavioral dimension or, how I am as a person inside or my clarity. Like if I'm suddenly confused, people call it midlife crisis. You're 45 and in corporate terms it's called midlife crisis. You suddenly don't know what to do with life. Bore ho raha hai, job bore ho raha hai, and then you don't know what to do. So people undergo this midlife crisis. So there is this directionlessness, and then you don't know what to do. So that creates a conflict in me. I have money, I have a bank balance, I have a great family, I have a wife, I have kids, and I'm still confused and unhappy because I don't know what to do with my life, what direction to head to. Or I have all these spiritual questions and I got cheated once by some spiritual guru. Now I am upset about it. Or I don't know how to answer that question. So these four dimensions put together comprise the sum total of our experience as human beings. Alright. And the states that we inhabit were the four states that I had put down on the board, which is living as an individual, living in family, living in society, living in the nation and internation, and living with nature. The same four dimensions in me, when I live them out, ये चार में ये खुलता है. This is clear so far? Anybody, any question, anything that you felt you agreed with, you disagreed with, you would like to have more clarity on? Because this is an important point. Because this is going to basically decide who we are. I mean, what we're going to do with our life as humans. Of one kind of unhappiness, of the unhappiness that arises from this. So let me write this here so it stays with us for the next few days because we will need it. So some of the things that we need I'll just put down here. So this is our stuff for questions that we will take up later. Like I told you, any question that you have, any meaningful question. If you ask me how to make plastic, then that's not a question we'll answer here. But any meaningful, fundamental question, we'll take up here. So there is the material dimension. I'll use the board occasionally. It also helps to give a pause because the slide keeps flowing. So it helps you pause and reflect. The Hindi terms for this are nice. This is called bhautik, this is called vyavharik, this is called bauddhik, and this is called adhyatmik. So the first material thing that we experience is the body. In fact, even in the behavioral dimension, we do it along with the body. Okay, with the body. But isme you are experiencing the body and things via the body. So in the body, you have the 5 senses. Okay. So these are also called the Gyanendriya. The Gyanendriya means the organs of knowledge that bring in knowledge to us. And we'll study that more. But if we want to, kind of expand that here, in the 5 senses, you have the eyes. Like the eyes bring us information about the external world, about the fact that you exist, what color of shirt you're wearing, what distance you're. Of course, the brain makes up the rest of the image. What you're actually seeing is with the brain, with the construct the brain is making. But we have the eyes, we have the nose, the sense of touch, right? So you have the sense of smell. What else? The sense of sight. If you want to write it as an indriya, then it will be sight. Smell, touch. What are the other senses? Hearing, taste, hearing. Shabd, sparsh, roop, ras, gandh. So we have the 5 senses. So if you see the sense of touch, it's through the entire body. Yeah. And then so these are called the 5 sensory organs or the 5 senses. The organs, so we have the senses and then you have the organs that enable those senses. And then you also have 5 karmendriyas. Karmendriyas are the things you do action with. What are the 5 things with which you do action? It's very simple. You have the hands and then the feet. Then you talk using the throat. And then the urinary is called dwar. This thing is called dwar is, a door opening. So it's called mal dwar and mutra dwar. Mal dwar is where you defecate from, excretion. The urinary opening and excretory system. So when we say the body is healthy, it basically means that the urinary, the food, the hands and feet, this is healthy and you're able to get. So this put together is functioning the way it's functioning. And that's the happiness to derive from health, of being healthy. And for a lot of people, it's a very important part of the day. If they get up and they don't do pranayam or kapalbhati or the Surya Namaskar, they feel because you get used to it. And if you don't do it, it's a big part of my life. Like cycling is a big part of my life or going to the gym is a big part of my life. This is sensory with the body. Then you have other things you do via these senses, right? So what are these that you do via the senses? So then we use objects, like I said, we use various things or objects using these senses. Like I use a phone. I need to have my 5 senses, at least 3 of the senses to use the phone. I need to have the karmen. I need to have a hand. Yeah? I need to be able to see what's in the phone. And it's also talking, so I need to be able to hear also. So then I'm able to enjoy the phone. I have an iPhone, but I can't see it. Can't enjoy the thing. I have a car, but I don't have any feet. I can't drive it. So uska sukh nahi milega. So going ahead, we'll look at these kinds of happinesses. Okay, so but here if you see, you have the happiness that comes from the senses, let's just call it A. So this we can just number this because it had a number on the board. We can number it in any order, explain it in any order, doesn't matter. Alright. So there are things and objects that give us happiness. This is B. There is a work that you do. For example, I plant trees and then I feel happy. अच्छा लगता है. क्या हो गया? You put the seed inside and then you watch it sprout. For those people who live in the cities, it can be very magical. For the farmer, it's not magical at all. He's been seeing it since childhood and he curses it because it doesn't give him enough money. So इससे पेट नहीं भरता है. The city guy likes it by seeing it because he already has money and now he's doing it for the joy of seeing the plant grow. 99% of farmers don't farm because they want to see the joy of the thing grow. They do it because they have to feed their family. And they're worried that when the crop is ready, it may rain or, the market prices may fall. There may not be any buyers. He may reach the, milling late. That's all, work. So you have this. So you have happiness that comes from the senses, happiness that comes from objects, and happiness that comes from work. These are all material in nature. Alright? And in this, within the senses, if you see, we have what is called as the four. Here, I'll just put a star here. We only got three colors, right? Did I lose a pen? I'm good at losing pens. Did you get four or three? You got four, so you already lost one without even using it. Hey? Laptop? Okay. I tend to misplace pens also. Yeah. Oh, awesome. This is also black. Okay. Okay, one red and one. Got it. Got it. So another experience we have with the body is, I'll write it in English because we're doing food, ahar, nidra, sleep. I wish I could make the board a little neater, but okay, you get the message. Yeah. Food, sleep, and then fear, and this is called coitus. Coitus का मतलब है sexual contact. It's called maithun. Ahar, nidra, bhay, and maithun. So these are fundamental to us as humans. ये चार है. So when you feel satiated, you feel hungry and thirsty, and you eat food, इसका सुख मिलता है. But when the food is to my liking, you are getting sensory pleasure. You understand the difference? You're thirsty and you drank water. You're thirsty and you drank water which was given in a very nice glass. You're hungry and you got food. You need nutrition, so you got dal, you got carbohydrates. Everything that you need to keep the body healthy is available to you. But it's the cuisine that you like. आपको गुजराती खाना अच्छा लगता है. You like Gujarati food. Now you're satiating the body, the need for nourishment of the body, using things that I like. So pleasurable satiation. Okay. Otherwise, I can still have satiation, but it's not so pleasurable. So even within the sensory domain, you see there are two parts to it. Like sleep, you get a good night's sleep. It's very satisfactory. You feel very content. अच्छा लगता है. So I slept well. The problem is, what do I do after I wake up? Now that I've woken up, what do I do with life? So to be healthy, etc., comes within that. It's within the material domain. And if you look at it in the behavioral domain, then you have people. So in the behavioral domain, you have people as in family. In Sanskrit or Hindi, you have a nice term which is called kutumba. Kutumba is a larger family, not just because when you say family now, it can be three people, sometimes it's four, this joint family it is six, this joint family 8, and so on. So kutumba, so family plus extended family, which is the kutumba. And you have society. And then you have the systems in society. Yeah, the people in society and the systems in society. So that's also part of an experience that I have. You don't like, I live in India, I don't like the way Indians behave. Now I have conflict. I live in India. I don't like Indian roads. Now I have a problem. My samosa is good, but the road is bad. Yeah, I slept well, or I'm trying to sleep, and that fellow's playing music at 5 a.m. If you're living next to a religious place, then they won't let you sleep after 5 a.m. Boing starts in India. Now they're trying to ban the loudspeakers. This is probably a good thing. Just ban all the loudspeakers. Then be done with it. Want to play something, play it on your phone. Okay? Human systems. So the things and objects that we use in the work, that whole thing put together is actually comes from nature. So that forms part of nature. So any interaction we have with nature also forms part of this experience. मैंने उसको स्लाइड में लिखा था लाइक घूमने जाते हैं ना यू गो एंड सी अ नाइस सनसेट यू गो टू अ लेक you go play in the snow, you go drive and go to the snow, you go by train to the snow. All that is part of the material experience. Like you might like to go walking by the lake here. It's a nice walk. All that is part of the material experience. So it's a whole set of little experiences in the material business. How can you go beyond that? Being healthy? Ah, not in your mind. It will address that part of you which wants health. And we'll see that. There are different objectives we have within us. Okay? One is to get pleasurable senses. That's called a drishti. We'll take that up when we do it tomorrow. But since you opened it, I'll open it up now. So one is I like experiences that are to my liking. This is called priya, yeah, interest-based motives. So if you look at the six motives you have within the mind, within the intellect. Again, when we say intellect, I'm just going to write the mind. Later on, we'll open up the mind. Okay. Right now, let's just call it the mind, the mental plane. So within that, there are these six motives that we have. One motive, I can use up this space because we're not using that area. And we still have that question of whether plants have blood or not. So we'll come to that. Okay. So there are six motives that we have, or six ways in which we experience or interpret any external experience as being happy or unhappy. In addition to these experiences that we have with the body, there is an interpretation that you go through with it. For example, you like sweets. Let's say you like rasmalai or rasgulla. All right. And somebody gives you a rasmalai or rasgulla. You eat it and you say, this is very nice. And somebody says, my mother made this rasgulla for you and you have it. Are both the experiences same or is it different? It's different. What's happening in the second one is not only are you getting the taste from the rasgulla, but you're also getting the bhava, the feeling that somebody made this for you. All right. And while you're eating it, that guy says, actually my mother doesn't like you. She thinks you're an idiot, but she anyways made it for you. Now your interpretation of that happiness is again undergo a change. See, why does his mother think I'm an idiot? Why doesn't she like me? So the taste of the rasgulla is still there. The fact that the mother made it for you is still there, but now you have a problem with the guy's mother. All right. So if we break this down and we will see this, the first one is a motive of whether something is to my liking or not. It's called likes-based tasting. We'll see it. It's everything that I'm writing. So at the end of this, I'll give you this slide stack. You will get a simple website link where you have resources for what you can read ahead if you are interested in following up with the content. And when I get back to Pune, maybe because we have your numbers, maybe you can form one of you can just volunteer and make a little group so I can just post it there. I have the whole book. You can just take the entire book because nobody's publishing it anyways. You might as well read it, before they publish it. We're trying to get some top 5 publisher, academic publisher to publish it. But the entire thing is written. Whatever I'm saying is, I think close to 450. 450. मैंने उसको 2 पार्ट में कर दिया because it's too big. but I'll give you the the combined one with the smallest possible font. If you increase the font, it'll be 550. Sorry? It's in English. Yeah. The entire thing was written in English. It was written for students. I told you, right, that this entire thing, इसका जो छोटा capsule है, which is what you attended. So the smaller capsule is a part of the curriculum for engineering students. We were at least able to get our foot in the door. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hindi. You want to do it in Hindi? I thought you do it in Odia. Hindi? Okay. Yeah, yeah. We can do it. And then, so the thing is, what I thought is I'll have the combined edition for those who we would just like to distribute it to. And when you want to give it to the colleges, etc., when I have to go to publisher, I split it into two. The second part will never be published. So I'll give the first part. So it's okay. Oh, yeah, I got it. All right. So one is called likes. The second is health. So like, uh, you like food, but then you also eat healthy food. आपको करेला अच्छा नहीं लगता है, but you have to eat it because you have diabetes. So it's something that you don't like as taste, but it is important because it is healthy. So now healthy is more than taste. So for some time taste is more than health. Like for our small children, you will say don't eat curd at night. उसको like ही चाहिए. Up to age 25, 28. Then after some time the body starts giving antagonistic messages. कि ये ज़्यादा हो रहा है ना, this is getting too much. Now, even if you have dahi, you will start getting khatta dakar the next morning. You will start getting the GERD, gastric esophageal reflux disease. This is very common in the cities. So then the body starts giving us a message that you can't now ignore. And now you have to start doing something for health. Then, I won't have curd at night. I don't want to have lal mirch. No more of that thing at night. I won't have chana bhatura for dinner. Have it in the daytime. Pachta nahi hai. It doesn't digest anymore. So this is health. The third way in which I interpret some external experience as happiness or unhappiness is whether it was profitable for me. So we have a Karela eating challenge and we say if you are able to eat 8 Karelas, we'll give you 1 lakh rupees every month for the rest of your life. You'll go ahead and eat the Karela. You don't like the Karela, you don't want to eat the Karela, but you're going to get paid for it. It's advantageous. Okay? So these are 3 ways in which we interpret the same experience outside based on the motive that we have. And then there are 3 more motives that I will address as we proceed. What is the underlying motive of your exercise? If your underlying motive for exercise is to get recognition in society, okay, then will you be contented just with a healthy body? I go to the gym. Have you seen people who go to the gym? Must have seen people who go to the gym. Anybody in the city, there are so many gyms. They typically walk like this because they're so tight, the poor guys can't walk. Have you seen them? When they walk, they become very inflexible, short t-shirt and walk like this. Who is he doing that for? So that people see him, or is he enjoying his health? When somebody builds their bicep and tricep and wears very short fitting t-shirts, you have gym t-shirts. You see them? They don't cover you fully. Make them body hugging one. I hate them. I just can't. I once I bought one by mistake and I had to throw it away. I can't stand something hugging me. It has to be like this, loose and. So is that person enjoying the health or the attention? He is doing it for the attention, not just for the health. So he wants attention, so he wants relationship there. So we're just going to call it now justice, but under bracket we are going to call it relation. Okay? He wants attention. So I go to the gym because I like going to the gym. I go to the gym because I want to be healthy. I go to the gym because by going to the gym I can become a gym instructor and earn money. I go to the gym because I earn money and I'm also going to get a puraskar. I'm going to get a shawl, a shield that I'm going to keep in the house. Action is the same and taking care of the body, but the motives are different. And we'll expand that. Okay? Make sense? We can have 3 options. Make sense, doesn't make sense, or is nonsense. Which of the three is it? All three are permissible. You don't have to agree with anything that I'm saying. Even if it is nonsense, it's fine. I mean, if it appears like nonsense. We've actually come together for 10 days to make sense of nonsense. Barabar, na? This seems to be complete nonsense out there. Huh? We don't know how to make sense of it. आप ढूंढो ना, go to the internet search engine, meaning of life. मर जाओगे with the result. You will get so many results, you won't know where to start. वो देखकर ही चक्कर आएगा कि मैं तो कॉफी पी के अभी सो जाऊंगा बाहर. This is too much of sense. People have written so much. Unbelievable. You know, I was visiting a place called Sringeri in Karnataka, Shimoga district. Anybody been there? It's a nice place. Sringagiri is called Sringeri. It's a scholastic and religious place. There was a center there. There was a nice building that he said Advait Shodh Kendra. I went in. Advaita is one interpretation of Vedanta. Vedanta is again a Indian darshan, one view of reality of what is written in the Vedas and Upanishads and so on. And I was just curious, so I went in. Okay, so Advait Shodh Kendra. It was a huge hall, about 40 feet by 12 feet, with books, with shelves full of books. I went in and looked at all the books. I thought, my God, it'll take me 3 lifetimes to read all of them. I walked off. Because if you have to do shows, you have to go through so many books. People have written a lot. Yeah, so we'll try and see whether we can cut through all the noise. Cut through all the nonsense and just get straight to the point. If it's possible. So what is happiness then? How do we define happiness? Happiness is a state of non-conflict or acceptance in every aspect of my being or living. I don't want conflict in my material aspect. I don't want conflict in my behavioral aspect. I don't want conflict within me. I want clarity in me. I don't want conflict in my spiritual aspect. I don't want my intellectual aspect to conflict with the spiritual aspect. I don't want this to conflict with my thoughts. I don't want my behavior to conflict with my thoughts. I don't want my family to conflict with my notion of behavior. I don't want conflict here. I don't want any kind of conflict is not permissible. It's a state I don't want to be in. I try to run away from that state. I try to correct that state immediately. If it's cold, I put on a shawl. If somebody tells me my shawl is torn, then I try to get a shawl that doesn't have a hole. It's still covering me, but I'm losing respect. So I don't want a torn shawl. I'm wearing the shawl and somebody tells me that's my shawl. Now I have a problem. He's basically telling me I'm a thief. Shawl is covering the body. It's not torn, but now I'm saying I don't like what you're saying. This is injustice. Ye mera shawl hai. I didn't steal it from you. I want a shawl to cover my body, right? But I want that pashmina shawl. That's 12,000 rupees. I don't have 12,000 rupees. Now I have conflict. So the need, I can still protect the body using any shawl, but my desire becomes one of a particular kind of shawl for which I don't have money. Or I want it and I ask my wife, let's say my wife runs the finances at home, and she says, this is too much, I can't give you money for this. Husbands करते हैं ना, the wife says ये खरीदना बोलो इसके लिए पैसा नहीं, this is beyond our budget. Somebody at home decides the budget, right? Usually the men. Abhi, traditionally, changing now. Somebody very close to me got married many years ago. Earlier when people married, they got wives. When men married, they got a housewife. Nowadays they get bankers, they get married to a lawyer, to a management professional, a CA, a lawyer. It's not a housewife, no. It's a वो become वाला जो पहले वाला था वो पढ़ के आए हैं. So traditional setup will not work. So this person got married. I was there in the house the first day after their marriage. So they both woke up at around 9:30. New couple, marriage वगैरह हो गया. They came down, and the girl came and sat on a jhula in the hall, and she was singing on the jhula. First day, first show. The boy went and asked her, the bride, the groom went and asked her, what will you have? He was trying to make her comfortable. Modern आदमी है ना? ये इंडिया में हो रहा है, not in the US. Indian guy in India. What will you have? Will you have tea, coffee, or milk? She said, I'll have hot milk today. So he went into the kitchen, made some hot milk and came and gave it. This guy's grandmother, who was married when she was 16, grew up the traditional way, was looking out the bedroom ऐसा, है ना? She was watching what was happening. First day, first show. उसका पोता का शादी हो रहा है. I went there. I said, what happened? She said, he's making a big mistake on the first day itself. अभी जिंदगी भर इसको करना पड़ेगा. He has to do it the rest of his life. You have to set the tone on the first day. Who's going to give milk to whom? If you make a mistake on the first day, then you're gone. You have to repeat the same thing forever. So that's also a conflict. So any kind of conflict that I have in any aspect of my living is a state I don't want to be in. And I like to get out of that state. Be it material, be it, intellectual. When I'm really, really troubled, then I say this is too much. Now I have to go and eat something. I mean, if you drink, you'll probably go and try to get yourself drunk because you will forget about it, at least for that duration, or go for a long drive. Let the cold air hit your face to clear up the mind, but it doesn't clear up the mind. It basically distracts us for some time. From this plane of living, we come down to this plane of living. Or you'll call up somebody that you like and say, why don't we go out for dinner? Let's go and meet somebody, which is why it's a big relief to meet people. Because there's so much of clutter inside, we need some escape. This is not helping. ये तो कुछ बोल ही नहीं रहा है ना? इसको कुछ बोलना था, ये बोल ही नहीं रहा, ये तो गूंगा है, he's not talking at all. You try to talk to God 100 times, God is too busy looking the other way. बेटा तू ही निपट है ना, this is your problem, you deal with it. Everybody has a reason for why God doesn't help you, right? Basically, it is your sin, so God wants you to fix your sin. So the spiritual life is not helping you. You have to take help here or here. Or shopping therapy, buy things. As long as this doesn't, why did you buy this clothes? I am kiya. Boredom. Then it goes beyond the budget. Then you say, I have to stop the shopping therapy. Now we can do window shopping, app shopping. It keeps scrolling and keeps, satiating the thing without buying it. Then you keep looking at a frock or a kapda or a shoe or a phone without buying it. And you'll see what that means. That's called aswadan or tasting. We have a faculty of tasting within us, which can work either mentally or physically or both. One way of tasting something is imagining it. One of my friends, they were yeah, anyways, I'll leave that joke aside. Yeah? So, this is happiness. What is unhappiness? Uncertainty. Milega nahi milega. Right? People who are constipated have a huge doubt. Aaj hoga ki nahi hoga. Especially as you grow older, one of the big targets for the day is to have some clean motion that day. Because we've had old people. I had 6, 7 old people at home. Their aim of life is not to become happy, become spiritual. It's to be able to go to the loo for that day. When they wake up in the morning, आज bathroom जाएगा कि नहीं जाएगा? Because it's something you want to get through, that you take for, granted. Right? So, as life progresses, this uncertainty can happen here, it can happen here. What's going to happen at home today? What's going to happen in society today? Somebody asked the king of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. They call him MBS for short. MBS. His full form is Mohammed bin Salman. So I saw an interview. I discovered YouTube Shorts about 2 months ago. I would never open YouTube. From somewhere that damn thing started, and now I waste about 10-15 minutes every 3 or 4 days. I call it a waste because it's not adding to my knowledge. I plan to get out of it. But in the small duration that I watched it, so it's actually useful because in about 30 seconds it gives you a summary of something. Yeah, I don't want to get into the details. So somebody interviewing India, Mohammed bin Salman, is saying, why doesn't Saudi Arabia consider having a nuclear weapon? You can easily afford it. You can just buy one off the shelf. You have so much of oil. He says, today if you use a nuclear weapon, you're not just using it against that country. It means you're fighting the entire world. आज जो मानसिकता हो गया world में, you cannot use a nuclear weapon because by doing so, you are taking a panga with the entire world, not just with that country. Those days are gone when America could bomb Japan and nobody would say anything. And that was his answer. So, but he said if somebody buys it, we'll have to buy it because he bought it. Otherwise, my people will not let me sit in peace. So, deterrence के लिए मुझे लेना ही पड़ेगा. So, you can have uncertainty in society, in system. We don't know what the outcome of an election is going to be. We don't know where the temple is going to be, whose temple is going to be. One of the most famous temples in the country is going to be named after me, like a month or two from now. They don't know that I'm here, but right? So there's a lot of uncertainty. So that's a goal. Yeah. So what we want to get to here is really whether this definition here is necessary and sufficiently explains our state of comprehensive happiness or unhappiness. So whenever I don't have any conflict, when I have a feeling of acceptance, then I'm unhappy. So I'm hungry. The mother is hungry. She doesn't have sleep, but is able to feed the child. So the mother is accepting a problematic, condition in the body. So this is bigger. Which is bigger? 4, 3, 2, or 1? Which is a bigger value? What do you think? 1, 2. उसी order में. You see in India, for those people, I'm just taking an example. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Right now, we won't get into that. People who try to become spiritual, do they wear expensive clothes and rear kids and send them to school? No. They say, don't have this. This is the problem. I mean, that's one version. Okay. You just focus on this and then get rid of this. इसको कम करो. So don't go by this. So basically, there are some customs like in Jainism, for instance, in Gujarat, Rajasthan, those areas, they have a bowl. So in the bowl, they say basically add all the food, they'll make a khichdi out of it and just eat the mix. So you don't get the individual taste. Have you seen people do that? I've seen them do that. For him, is that happiness or unhappiness? That mixed food, उसको अच्छा लग रहा है कि बुरा लग रहा है? He is actually liking it because his motive for doing it is not the taste. He thinks he's doing the right thing that's going to help him take him to salvation or enlightenment or whatever it is, or freedom. Yeah, so we're trying to test this hypothesis. We're trying to test this uh, definition of happiness. That to live with a feeling of acceptance itself is happiness. स्वीकृति के भाव में जीना ही सुख है. When I'm accepting of the condition, even if it is not to my liking, but due to some reason, if I'm accepting of it, then I feel good. Why don't you think of some instance where this definition is wrong? उल्टा करते हैं. Can you think of examples or instances where this definition will not apply? Yeah.
I'm very fond of ice cream, so I always love to eat ice cream. But the situation is like that. I am sitting in a AC room. My child is sitting in Germany. He's pursuing some higher education, technical education in Germany. And I was holding a cup of ice cream in the air-conditioned chamber in my house. All at a sudden, I saw that a SMS has come that my child has faced a road accident and is in ICU. So that is a situation where the food is tasty, delicious. That is my favorite food. But mentally, I am upset because my child has faced an accident. So because of that kind of internal discoordination or disharmony, I am in unhappiness. So this is an opposite situation to the first one.
Yeah. So what has happened there really is that the ice cream was giving me sensory pleasure according to life.
Yeah.
Okay. But a relationship has been damaged, which is of a higher value. The other example could have been that you're talking to your son and your son suddenly says that you had given them $50,000 for their fees and he lost it. Even then the ice cream taste will go out the window. That's $50,000 तुमने पूरा फीस ही घुमा दिया, idiot. So it's not profit. So the profit motive is higher than the health motive. The health motive is higher than the likes motive. The likes is what we do with the senses, what you like and don't like. And we'll see that as we proceed, we'll also see that the likes motive extends to the other areas also. Like I don't like your version of spirituality, I like my version of spirituality. ये होता है कि नहीं? I don't agree with your guru. We were just having a small chat last evening over dinner, after dinner. We were talking of religions and how they grow, just chatting, exchange of ideas. Right? Not when we talk outside. When I'm talking outside, it's an exchange of ideas. When I'm talking inside, I'm trying to put forth something structured and definitive to you, but you need to test and validate it. What's really happening, what we're going to try and do in this workshop is that I'm going to try and draw your attention towards certain truths that I have already checked and verified. And you need to check and be able to see the same thing. So you need to do more of the work inside. I'm going to do less of it. काम तो आपको करना है, मैंने भी किया है, कर भी रहा हूँ. You also have to do it because it's your life. Okay. So any other example of when this definition will not be true? Like Israel-Gaza war हो रहा है. There are three options. You like the fact that 20,000 Gazans have died. Second option, you like the fact that 3,000 Israelis have died. You don't like the option that यहाँ 3,000 हुआ, वहाँ 20,000 हुआ. You feel it should be equal. Third option, because I've heard all three opinions. And fourth option is you don't like the fact that anybody died in a war. चार में से कौन सा आपको ठीक लगता है? 1, 2, 3 or 4. Nobody should have died in a conflict, right? But are they asking you before conflicting? No. आपको फोन करके पूछ रहे क्या सूरज झगड़ा करूं क्या, डालू क्या 2 आरपीजी, बोल, तू बोलेगा तो मैं डाल देता हूँ. नहीं. He doesn't even know that you exist. You don't know who's dying, but the fact that somebody is dying affects me inalienably. Yeah, it also shows that and we talk about it when we come to relationships, that we are also linked to every human being, although we don't know who they are, because what they do and their state affects us and our state of being. And we feel bad, and that's the state of conflict. And how can you be accepting of that conflict? I'm giving an example where we will challenge this. I myself am challenging the definition, right? Then you will say, how can I be accepting of the problem? How can I accept? I mean, somebody's killing somebody, they're killing somebody back. People have been giving funny arguments. They're saying that the balance is not there. Somebody was interviewing people in UK. You see, but 20,000 Gazans have died, only 3,000. So the interview is like, it's a war. In a war, justice is not done by you kill equally. Whoever is more powerful will hit more. How do you know what is justice in India? But how do I accept it? So the only way for me to understand the situation or to be at peace in such a situation is to understand why it happened and what is the long-term solution. Problem का क्या है? Answer क्या है? We call it समाधान. We'll come to it. It's called resolution. I took an example where this definition will not apply, right? How can I be in a state of acceptance when somebody is killing somebody? Yeah, 3,000 children have died, 2,000 children, 1,000. Those children are not fighting. उनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है ना. They're all little children, 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. Both sides are killing both sides of children. है ना? In war, when everything is lost, women and children are the first to get hit in any war. You agree? सबसे ज्यादा अत्याचार महिलाओं पर होता है in any war. Everybody does it. Nobody is being free. Any country in the world that has never tortured any other country, आपको लगता है? Give one example. 0. एक भी नहीं. So what is the answer? We'll get to that. We have to see how we can have this security even for those states that we do not control. So now we have another caveat to it. In this definition, aspects of my being or living that are within my control. There will be others that are not in my control. For them, I need to find out what the solution is. Right? And know that by doing so and so thing, this is how it is going to be resolved. Like the air in Delhi is polluted, the air in Bangalore is polluted. Can you accept that? How will you accept the fact that the air is polluted? You can't. You don't want it to be polluted. You have to know why it got polluted, how it cannot be polluted, what people can do for it, what you can do for it, and then do it. ठीक है? Is this a fair enough uh, definition for happiness and unhappiness? Or are you too tired and sleepy to answer? We are getting the first yawns now.
So, Bhaiya, there is no absolute happiness by this definition, right? Because uh, there would be something or the other that we will not accept or we will not be okay with. Is it? My question.
No, there is, because happiness going to be inside me or outside me?
Inside.
So there will be aspects that I control, and then there are aspects that are beyond my control. So if I desire something for aspects that are beyond my control, is that even a valid desire? For example, I desire that all of you shave your head off. This is my intense desire that all of you have shaven heads. Is it even possible? Not possible. I have access, I have control over my head. So I can shave off my head. So then we need to look at what are valid desires and what are invalid desires. Desires that are impossible to achieve. I have a desire that all of you dress and talk like me. Is that even possible? It's impossible. So you have to look at what are valid desires and what are invalid desires. So this living with a feeling of acceptance for aspects I control. Okay. So I'm going to put this here. And resolution for aspects I do not. नहीं तो मेरा unhappiness guaranteed है. As long as Putin is hammering Ukraine, even if I have my life sorted, I am still doomed to be unhappy. ये problem है. So I need a resolution. I need to be resolved in my mind as to why is this conflict happening. है ना? जैसे बारिश होती है, it's unseasonal rain, we get upset. Let's say, so English में there is a this thing, what is it? Rain, come out the day because little Johnny wants to play. So whenever Johnny wants to play, the rain god has to go away. ऐसा हो गया. Is it even possible? Not possible. Johnny is getting upset. Why is he getting upset? Because he wants to play in it raining. But Johnny's grandfather, who's a tomato farmer, is happy because the raining at the right time. So there are aspects like the weather is not under my control. If I'm going to get upset because of changing weather patterns, I'm not resolved about it. I don't understand why the pattern is the way it is. Once I understand it, I know it's a rainy season. So now I'm prepared that it's going to be rainy for 3 months and I'm going to have an umbrella for those 3 months. That's the resolution. You understand this? You know that it's going to rain. Like for now, for the time that we are going to be alive, expect climate change. It's already there. If you're going to mentally try and fight it, you'll only cause. You have to do something to not have it, and you will do it to the extent that you can, to the span of control that you have. You think any single individual on the planet can stop climate change now? One man? Possibly नहीं. इतना बड़ा है. All of us have to change. The entire systems have to change. The policy has to change, and individuals also have to change. Do you think by passing laws we can stop climate change? No. The consumer behavior has to change. The industry has to change. The technology has to change. The policy has to change. Everybody has to change. It's not possible. So we have to accept that the fact that everybody has to change. If that change is going to take 500 years, you have to wait 500 years. That's the resolution. You understand that? So there are aspects that I control and there are aspects that I do not control. Okay? So we'll come back to this definition whenever need be. G. स्टेट ऑफ नॉन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इन एवरी एस्पेक्ट ऑफ माई बीइंग. ये जो है, ये जीने के हर आयाम के लिए चाहिए आपको. जैसे हमने ये वाला एग्जांपल आपने ड्रिंकिंग का लिया या ड्रग्स का लिया. अब ये मैंने लिया तो इट इज डूइंग समथिंग इन माय ब्रेन. Any kind of, let us say, addiction creates some change in the brain. So it creates some kind of impulse for that moment in time. Okay. But at the same time, there is information residing in me that knows that by doing this for a sustained duration of time, the overall health of the body is going to reduce. So while it is providing me happiness for that particular instant, for those few seconds or a minute or 5 minutes, right? It is going to be at the cost of long-term health, which is going to affect me over the next 15 years. So that's going to cause. So there's a long-term conflict. So there are many choices in which we have short-term gain, but there is going to be a long-term conflict. It will not be, which is why the definition is still true, because you have to figure out a way of being in which all these dimensions are taken care of. If you take one at the cost of another, it's going to cause a problem. Like I tell my family, I'm busy studying, so I'm not going to fend for you. No, you figure out. I'm going to live a intellectual life. I'm going to become a writer. अब तुम लोग अपना खाना देख लो. There's justice or injustice. It's injustice to the family, but justice to me. So right now, the choices that we have in the ways we live is one at the cost of another, because we are not able to see all of them at the same time. And sometimes we're just helpless. It just gets too much that we just, at that moment react. I mean, let's say you come back from work, you're very tired, you had a bad day, the traffic is being bad, you come back home and somebody does something that you don't like. We just react, right? You say, yeah, every day I tell you, you don't do this and you do the same thing, and then it becomes a fight. Now, if you don't know the background, if you don't know how to navigate the situation, that thing can really start snowballing. But if you actually see that it started with a physical irritation and then gone on to behavioral irritation, and then it is multiplied into an intellectual irritation, then it has become a khandani irritation. Your entire family is like that. Your khandan is like this. I shouldn't have married you. Udhar tak jata hai wo. It can go anywhere, right? Or we can be cursing each other's gods also. कि तेरे भगवान के कारण ये हो रहा है. So any problem that starts at the body level can then go into the behavioral and then into the intellectual and become like a global problem. Just like a spiritual problem, it's a universal problem. Now, who created this universe? This itself is a problem. So our definition, the state that we seek is where we don't have an conflict of one over the other. Whenever we're getting one over the other, utne time ke liye to acha lagta hai. You do feel good for that duration. You cannot take that away from somebody. You had a fight, you went and ate ice cream. For that moment, you do feel good. But it doesn't fix the problem. But it is a getaway. There's no denying that. ठीक है ना? Okay? So there's my danda. हाँ यहीं पर लिख दिया मैंने. In every aspect of my living, resolution. The other options will come to. We'll come to that when we get to the for aspects like control. Okay, this is already there. Sorry. Everybody good? Not good. The definition of happiness is creating conflict in you. वो भी हो सकता है ना. How can this be happiness? So this is a new conflict I deal with. I don't agree with your definition of happiness. I'll also tell you where these definitions are coming from. It's not my definition, but it's a definition that I've tested and found to be true. So we'll get to how we'll be. So we also see that we want this state of well-being always. That we do not want to be divorced from this feeling of well-being in these four dimensions, even for a moment. I've eaten food and now I'm getting bored of eating, feeling nicely. Let me be hungry for 2 days. Bore हो गया खाना खाने. ऐसा होता नहीं है. We want the mental assurance to be good. I've been rich for too long. Let me become poor for a few years and see. We don't do that. We've been having a nice time for too long. Now I'm bored with this niceness. Let's fight for a bit to get some variety and spice into our life. Do we do that? Do we try and get out of non-conflicting situations that we are in, or we try to maintain it and continue it? What's your view? We try to maintain and continue. In fact, we try our best not to make mistakes. Do you think people make mistakes on purpose, or they make mistakes by mistake, or because they can't help it?
There is no right understanding, then they tend to make mistakes. For instance, uh, when you're starting a relationship, you might want to test and you might do actions that will make other person happy just to show your testing each other. The intention maybe good. It will create.
It will create some mess because you're trying to test the other person out. Anybody else? So in that example, are we making that mistake to find out what is correct or to make a mistake? When you test out somebody in a relationship by making a mistake, ये सब मूवी में उटपटांग सब दिखाते हैं ना, they show all this उटपटांग thing. I don't think it happens in real life. To test your faith, whether your wife is, how much your wife loves you, you'll go with some other guy for a day and come back and then see how she felt. तो सब पता नहीं, I'm sure script writers को तो काम तो है नहीं, है ना, intellectual कुछ कुछ चलते रहता है, they keep churning out scripts. I stopped watching movies like 15, 18 years ago. I watched some one or two random ones in the middle. But it's complete trash because it's somebody's imagination. I'm paying good money and time to watch some fellow's concept, which is not even true, which doesn't help me in life, which is just going to distract me for some duration of time. Why do we watch movies? Because we are bored or because we are fulfilled in the same of entertainment and complete nonsense. है ना, किसी का मन का पकौड़ी. Somebody has imagined something and paid money to get it done, and I am like an idiot going eating popcorn and watching it. It doesn't help. If it's a helpful movie, that's a different thing. I'm not saying all movies are wrong. There may be some movies that are useful, meaningful, maybe put across a message, etc. But the thing really is, in this example, when you're trying and testing somebody, is it to find out what is right or is it to like make a mistake? Let's take another example. Can you purposefully get angry or does anger happen? Do you end up getting angry or can you consciously become angry? Become angry, not just displaying anger. हम बच्चों के साथ करते हैं ना, you show that you're angry, or you may do it on the road to scare off somebody. But can you actually get angry on purpose? नहीं होता. You become angry. Can you deliberately become jealous? Or we become, मतलब jealousy happens to us. It happens to us. Can you deliberately get confused or does confusion happen to us? Confusion happens to us. We cannot try and become wrong. Wrongness is like an absence of something that we lost or we are not clear about. Do you understand that? You can't try and make a mistake. Like when you're driving, can you deliberately make a mistake while driving? No. Like you drove down from Bombay, you would have tried your best to make sure you don't make a mistake. I mean, why would you intentionally put yourself and your family in harm's way? Even if you're doing it with the confidence कि मैं संभाल लूंगा. If you're taking like a blind overtake on a blind turn, like when I'm driving, my family, my wife, my child, whoever is in the car, they'll keep telling me, don't overtake from here, udhar dekhta, udhar. We are all trying. Then my confidence would be कि नहीं, I'm fine. I have the control and, don't worry. I have everything. But my best attempt at that time is to not make a mistake. You cannot make a mistake on purpose. Like in mathematics, when you make a mistake, or how many of us have made mistakes when doing mathematics? Ganit mein galti. All of us. How many of us made the mistake deliberately? No. Once you know what is right, you cannot make that mistake again. It doesn't happen. It's just not possible. It's not there in us. My father would tell me that his uncle brought him up and he would check his mathematics. I mean, my father was very good at mathematics and I used to get beaten up every time I made a mistake, and that beating was not, they hit you, I don't know how many, they hit you on the head here, so it radiates down, right? So whatever you know also gets flushed down. जितना याद था वो भी गायब हो जाता है because it's all stored somewhere up here, and if you get beaten up here, it still radiates somewhere else. So he said his uncle, when he would check his math problem, would see, let's say he made a mistake in some equation, ek batata tha usko. And then he would hit him again saying, you idiot, you made the same mistake again. If he has made the mistake the first time, it means he got the concept wrong. So he is going to repeat the same wrong concept n number of times till he gets the concept right. So my father would say, I would be wondering why he's hitting me again, because he's anyways hit me once for that mistake. And it's the same mistake that is repeating itself. It's an interesting thing, right? You cannot make a mistake on purpose, even in mathematics or in life. We do it despite our knowing, either having information otherwise, like we know it's wrong to steal, and we still steal because we can't help ourselves. Maja aata hai. There are people who do it, right, for a kick. There are a lot of people who have money. Some people, they're called kleptomaniacs. There are some actors and actresses who are like that. They will try to get a kick out of stealing something in a shop. Not because they don't have money, but because they like the fact you know chura liya. And they're caught once in a while. So we want to have this happiness always, and we want to continue in this state, and we don't want this to be interrupted even for a moment. The moments it's interrupted, we try and shift it. We go back to that state of being. Okay, we'll come back to this whenever needed. Oops. The computer is slowed down. This is my friend's computer. I use a desktop computer at home, and we needed two computers during this trip, and we bought a second-hand one, but it's sitting in the US. It will come next month. My brother is traveling next month, so he'll bring it. I like to reuse electronics and other stuff because people don't use it after 5 or 6 years. It's nice to use the end life. Like even when we bought a car, we bought a used car, end of life car, so you can extend its life for some more years. So that's a way of getting happiness by using old and used and broken things. Iska bhi sukh hai. Some people get it. Some people like to own new things. I like to own used things that are repaired and somehow put together and are still working. मेरे को उसमें अच्छा लगता है. I borrowed my neighbor's computer. He's a doctor. He has a slow computer. So it's not very fast. Maybe I'll shut it down tonight. So we've broken this down again. These are the stages. So we experience happiness as momentary sensations in the material domain with good people interactions. So people interactions which are good or interactions with good people. Dono hai. Sometimes you're interacting with people and the interaction is good. Sometimes you're interacting with good people and it feels good. These are two kind of outward experience. And sometimes we also do something meaningful for society, and that's also something that gives us some kind of happiness. Like, why do you think I'm conducting this workshop? You think because I'm going to make money? No, I lost money to come here. I'm going to lose money over the next 10 days. I will pay for my food. You're going to pay for our ticket, right? Spending 10 days, but it's giving me some kind of fulfillment. That's not, material. It's not sensory in nature. I didn't come here for the good food. Honestly, I didn't know what they were going to feed us. I didn't come here because I'll become healthier and all that. It gives us something else. Yes, it is in an external setting. It will depend on the external factor. If I, become hell-bent that you will listen to me and that you will agree with me, then it will become a binding for me. But even if you don't agree with me, I'm still going to feel fine with the workshop. Yeah, we did feel that we should have at least 10 people to have a decent workshop. I didn't expect too many people to come. Yeah. Yes. That is called, yeah. So that's what we'll get to. That comes from understanding. That state is called resolution or samadhan, where we are interacting with the external environment, but we are not dependent on the response of the external environment for our internal state. There are two ways to look at it. One is, I have external dependencies, so I will withdraw from the dependencies and go into nothingness. So for example, there is me. There is my mind. There is an external dependency. There is a food. There is a body. It demands food. It demands sleep. And there is this coitus need. Then the sensory demands. Then there are objects. Then there is work. So there is a whole world. I get rid of this. One problem solved. There is people, society, systems. I sab ye sab maya hai. All this is nonsense. It doesn't exist. I will withdraw into the spiritual domain because being with this means that there is a dependency. Okay, that's one way to approach it, and people have tried to approach this problem in this manner, especially in the eastern part of the world. This part of the world, the Indian subcontinent, all the way up to, let's say up to Japan, Thailand, Burma, wahan tak. That's one way that people have tried that because there is an external dependency. I don't want to be externally dependent, so I cut off these relations as much as I can. One layer of relationship. So that's why when people take sannyas in this country, for example, they will cut off those relationships also. They change their name. Something Ananda, this Ananda, that Ananda, Thamalana. So identity को ही बदल देते. उसके बाद their own parents, their own sister and father and mother cannot interact with them like they are part of. They will not touch them. You will still meet them in the notion of sannyasa in this country and I'm speaking in this subcontinent. Okay, including all the religions. There's so many religions and systems that came here. But those people who tried to isolate did that. They shut this off. And they brought this down to a minimal. So 2 pieces of cloth, no change in color. एक फिक्स कर दो white, yellow, pink, blue, purple, magenta. एक फिक्स कर दो, don't change it. So one झंझट खत्म. Taste को भी खत्म करो. Whatever food you get, make it a mix, eat it. So you don't know which food you're going to get that day. Shut that down. Don't marry, so you got rid of this problem. If you don't marry and you get rid of the sex problem, there will be no children also, no children, so no education bill, no school, nothing. So that whole line is gone. Okay. And then slowly withdraw yourself from this, then withdraw yourself from this, withdraw into this, then withdraw yourself from this and go into this. Some people have tried this. Yeah. So priest and sannyasi is different. So in priesthood, then again we've switched the religion. In priesthood, this kind of that's called monasticism. So monasticism is different from priesthood. If you take monastics, then they don't do that. Then they try into getting into some transcendental state or higher community. I'm just saying people have tried this. I'm not saying it's good or bad. We're not giving a value judgment right now. We're going to try and find out what's true in reality and what's true for us. Using that, then maybe we can go ahead around assessing, compared to what we have found to be true and complete, where does what stand? But I'm just telling you that for the dependency problem, some people have tried to, divorce themselves from this. But if you find that these four are integral and you're anyways connected, then the only option you have is what is the right way to connect with it. So here what we're talking of is what is the right way to live with this. The reason we try to go away from it is because there has a problem, but we are saying there is a right way to be in it. In the particular query that you took up. Yeah, which is why I said on the first day, I thanked all of you for being here, because who do I talk to? And I don't know who's going to come here, right? I didn't know that these are going to be the 15. It could be anybody. मेरे को तो यही बोलना है. Irrespective of who is going to be sitting here, number one. Number two, I already know the result without knowing the audience. The beauty of this inquiry that we are getting into right now is that as the facilitator, I already know the result without knowing the audience. In many of the slides, we'll find that we will come to the answer that is already written on the slide. Do you find that is happening already? Sometimes we're getting the answer from the slide. Sometimes there is already an answer and it appears on the slide later on. This book was written 5 years ago. The slide was made last year. I put it together 4 months ago. I'm just cleaning it up yesterday. मैं रोज बैठ के मैच फिक्सिंग थोड़ी कर रहा हूँ कि कल ऐसा फिक्स करना है, ऐसा नहीं है. There's already 500 slides there. Many a times I've forgotten what the next slide is. This is why I press and see what's coming. When I press, sometimes I too don't know what's going to come. Like when, Jadu ka chadi. You press and something will come. So I have a Jadu ka chadi. But the thing is that if it is true, then I know it's true for all humans. And if you don't agree with it, I already know this is the reason you're not agreeing with it. And I have to then know that you will take time to get to that answer. So when will it become a problem, a dependency for me? Number one, if I get upset with the fact that you're not agreeing, so that's called Ichha Bandhan. We'll come to that. It's a binding of desire. So desire becomes a problem when either it becomes a bondage or when it is a wrong desire. Having desire by itself is not the problem. You understand this? Having desiring that your child become a good human is not a problem. Making it binding that he will become a good human the way I think he should be, when I feel he should be, that bondage is a problem. And not letting space for him or her to disagree or grow into that role is also a problem. So not having the patience, not learning to live with disagreement. And we'll see why and where that happens. This is not like a skill. It's an understanding that one has to develop over a period of time. Yeah. So I have to be prepared for the fact that you will disagree. I have to be prepared for the fact that you're going to take your own time to settle into the content. I have to be prepared for the fact that you may not like the content. And it's taken me time. When I conducted the workshop the first one or two times, I conducted the first one in 2007 at home in Pune over 4 weekends. The reason I took it over 4 weekends was I didn't believe anybody would want to come and listen to me. Who will take out 7 days to come and listen to me? So I said, let me make it easier for people. Let's do it over Saturdays and Sundays. So 6 people turned up. 3 were my junior colleagues from office. The boss ne bola to unko aana pada, so they came, right? The other 3 were from somewhere. And we ran it over. I was not married then. Of course, the content was, the flow was different. It was closer to what you just experienced 2-3 months ago. And then there was a time once when I was conducting a workshop when you come under pressure sometimes because the people have started sleeping. You're there to give 7-8 days of your life. You're talking about the ultimate reality, and somebody just is happier to sleep off. Those of doom, doom, ek ek karke, do karke so hai. So that pressure comes onto you, to keep them awake. So then I worked on that aspect, saying, what difference does it make? Uska sharir hai, wo so jayega. Even if all of you, some of you want to sleep now, you can happily sleep. Which is why you have mattresses. So you can stretch your feet and relax. You're not in a tight chair and nobody's trying to keep you awake. You want to snore off in the middle, do that. You want to go into one of those lockers, you can even do that. I just am saying I've had too much of this. I want to lock myself in number 12. I'll come out tomorrow. You can do that. So when so that's the thing, that we have to understand the nature of the things that we live with. So one of the things that I live with is the body. So I have to understand the nature of the body. I live with nature, so I have to understand the nature of nature. I live with things. I have to understand the nature of the things I live with and its limitation, what it will give me, what it will not give me. For example, I drive a car. It's going to ease my transport. If I think I'm going to get respect from the car, I'm wrong. That's not going to happen. When I mix up one dimension for the other, when I try to get respect by driving a car, then I mix two things up. When I think somebody is going to give me a PhD because I bought a new car, sorry. PhD के लिए इधर ही काम करना पड़ेगा. And because you got a PhD, will you be able to buy a car? Most likely not. Nobody will pay you because your PhDs don't get paid actually. In today's economy, you'll most likely end up as a lecturer with 50,000-60,000 a month. You can't buy a car. You have to go for an EMI option. You won't get a. You want a big car, then you do business. Dhanda karo. Do management. So money is going to come from other things. We'll deal with that when we come to society. So you have to know the nature of family as well. You have to know the nature of the person that we're interacting with. You have to know the nature of that particular relationship. Why it functions and why it malfunctions. Even of small children, we don't know. Actually, we don't know. Like this child, this is quite, it was halla kar raha tha in the first half, right? It was very noisy. He suddenly quietened down. If we don't understand why, and it's hard sometimes, right? But we have to, because there's no other way. Maybe we don't understand. Like my daughter, she doesn't listen. If she comes out to a place like this, I've already prepared my mentally expecting that she is not going to listen to me. She's got this newfound freedom. वैसे भी घर पे नहीं सुनती, she doesn't listen. But here too, she's not going to listen at all. If I'm going to try and subjugate her here, it's the wrong desire. It's not going to happen. She needs discipline, but now I have to figure out how she's going to get that discipline. How will she end up listening to her parents? मेरे बोलने से करेगी क्या? So then the details have to be worked out. Yeah, that's called behavioral science. So just like we have material science, we need behavioral science. We need intellectual science. We need spiritual science also. So we'll talk of science in all four dimensions. Material science, all of us are familiar with. Frogs, tadpoles, hydrogen sulfide, nitrogen gas, aerospace engineering, or everything that you do science here, right? We have behavioral science, intellectual science, and spiritual science. We'll talk of all four. Alright? Is my answer becoming too long or too tiresome? Yeah, take time to process. Also because we've not, I mean, me included, right? So it's not like I was born with this. I came out of my mother's stomach and started saying all this. I'm not one of those. You hear of those people who पैदा होते ही ज्ञान फेंकने लग गया and all that. We learn it. Because we've not paid attention to certain things, and then there's so many things to deal with. We can only deal with one at a time. Like if you deal with trying to be healthy, आपका 2-3 साल उसी में निकल जाएगा. Our processing power, our ability to multitask all these dimensions is limited, but it can develop over a period of time, and we'll see how it can be developed. If you're focusing on money, you lose relationship. If you're focusing on relationship, you forget the job. You focus on some self-development, you forget the job and the family. उसमें डूब जाते हैं. नहीं. You wanted to go at sports, you're losing the rest. You want to become a good farmer, you forgotten the family. You wanted to go for society, you forget family. अभी यही है. It's a tree with branches. And like a monkey, we have to hop all over. Yeah. But there's also a famous saying, for those people who deal with the mind, it's called the monkey mind because it doesn't stay in one place. You must have heard of it. Yeah, it's called the monkey mind because it goes to, it's like they tell stories of these teachers, no? So the student goes to the teacher for some training and he gives them a long instruction. Right? And aisa karo, vaisa karo, and this is how you need to meditate. And the student starts going away. So the teacher calls him back. He said, oh, there's one last thing I forgot to tell you. He said, what? Whenever you're doing all this, make sure you don't think of a blue monkey. And he sends him away. So वो चले जाते हैं. Blue monkey, why will I think of a blue monkey? He goes off because he has all this deep teaching and he has to meditate. After 1.5 years, the guy comes back very frustrated. What happened? He said, everything was fine. What was the need to mention that blue monkey at the end of the whole thing? Because whenever I say that's what comes up in my mind. You ask me not to do something and that's the exact thing that pops up in the mind. When we think of the mind, we have to get into that also. Yeah. So just to quickly wrap this up. So we feel at peace when we do not have any conflicting thoughts in us. We feel contented when we have what we desire. When we are able to become, do and experience as we decided. And this is typically a long-term emotion. Okay. Sometimes the short-term emotion can make us discontented. क्या discontented है? जैसे मान लो you came here and मच्छर काट रहा है. But it's short-term. It's not going to last very long. But contentment is what you derive from life. When you're much older, you ask people who are much older, and we'll get to that. What are the motives of human living? The long-term motives. You say, are you satisfied with life? When you're 55 and 60, what have you achieved? He's not going to say that I was able to stay healthy, I ate 35 samosas and 206 rasgullas. वो सब नहीं गिनता है. He says, life was good. I don't have any debt. I didn't have major fights with anyone. My children are married and settled. Okay. Overall, life has been fine. So there are these motives of life, and we'll come to those. One motive is to beget children, to have children. The other motive is to be financially secure, right? To have wealth. The third is to do something meaningful. We'll come to that. So these are the long-term motives of life. So we face contentment and we experience bliss when we have comprehension and knowledge of reality. So that's called Anand. Okay. So we'll talk about that. But right now, happiness itself has become so big. Earlier, happiness was in the little things, in getting a job. Now suddenly there's so much more to happiness. So we'll address that. So in other words, when we say happiness, it includes all of this, which is why I called it comprehensive happiness. Okay? Who will read what's written on the board and explain it? आप बताएंगे? This one, yeah, you can just read out. I mean, everybody can read. It's written in English. Everybody can read English.
For the concept of money or for things that are material, wealth, and prosperity. Do these things, do these terms mean the same thing or is there a difference? For example, let's assume I have a lot of wealth in the form of plenty of money. You come to my house and I get worried that you may stay back longer than expected and I might have to feed you tea, snacks, and even a meal. How much does this workshop cost? Is it worth the money?
So we've taken two terms. One is wealth and prosperity. So we spoke of happiness, which is a state of internal being, well-being. Prosperity is an extension. Prosperity is the assurance that comes from the material domain. We've just mentioned it separately because it is an important part of our life. And we'll talk of it. It's called samriddhi. But for now, we're just adding the word prosperity to our definition of happiness, just so that you don't feel it's getting missed. So there is wealth and prosperity. Do they mean the same thing or are they different? उसके लिए एक example दिया है. Right? The example is I'm well to do and you come home and I don't feel like feeding you. ये कहाँ से आ गया? है ना? Yeah, when we go to weddings, I've seen that conversation at home when they are called to बच्चे का birthday party or wedding. They try to remember how much that guy gave when they came for our wedding and then they say we'll return it. Some people sit and calculate that we are 5 of us going, so it's going to cost him 500 a plate. So we should give him at least 2000 so he can recover the cost of the wedding. Sometimes we feel got upset, he became unhappy. Huh? Fell down. Material unhappiness. Pain from the body. As adults, we don't cry that easily. No? Imagine one of us fell down and started crying. नहीं होता है. Something happens in us and we say now it's not correct to cry if you feel pain. So हम सह लेते हैं. We are able to bear the pain unless it becomes unbearable. Sometimes if you have a knee, your knee gets punctured or you break it, then you're going to be howling in pain. So wealth is a physical standard. It has a number to it. I have 5 lakh, 5 crores, 50 crores, 500 crores. Prosperity is the feeling of abundance. It has some correlation to the number, but does a higher number always translate into the feeling of prosperity? What do you think? ज़्यादा पैसा होने से do you automatically feel more prosperous? No. Prosperity is the result of some understanding. It's also the result of some kind of relationship. Like one of the questions, the last question I put up there is, one way to look at this workshop is, how much does this workshop cost? Is it worth the money? Earlier when we conducted these workshops, we would not write because it's basically free. The facilitator doesn't charge. There is no charge for the teaching because the teaching can't be sold. And a 5 rupees though, I'll tell you how to behave with your wife. If you give 12 bucks, I'll tell you a better way to be with your wife. The truth cannot be communicated that way, number one. Or things that are really meaningful cannot be communicated that way. But over a period of time, of course, somebody has to take the load. So, people decided that the participants themselves take the load, so they wouldn't mention the amount. Then, of course, there was some suggestion and feedback saying, at the end of the workshop, you said costed so much. If you told me in the beginning, I would have been mentally prepared. So nowadays, when you get a confirmation mail of having registered to the workshop, you kind of just mention what the expected cost of staying in food. It usually gets distributed amongst the participants. But can you gauge or decide the value of this workshop based on how much money you paid? Is it like a resort? Do you think that's possible? No. Kerala गए, Kovalam resort गए, है ना? Was it worth 50,000? Was it worth 30,000? That's material. So when we're expecting something material, you can measure it using something material. But there is no charge for meaning. There is no charge for emotion. There is no charge for affection. You can't charge. So anything that you can charge is actually material. You can't charge for something spiritual. So the other three dimensions cannot be bought with money. Spiritual understanding cannot be bought with money. Intellectual understanding cannot be purchased with money. Good feeling in relationship cannot be purchased with money. So what is prosperity? Prosperity is an outcome of some understanding. Right now we just want to make a distinction between wealth and prosperity. Saying to have money is something else. To feel prosperous is something else. And an example is like I just mentioned in the slide that if somebody comes home and you're constantly thinking of when they'll go away so you don't have to feed them, shows that you don't necessarily feel prosperous. Is it a feeling of prosperity or deprivation? When you feel you'd wait for somebody to go away and after that I will eat. We've been to somebody's house many years ago. I forgot the place. But it was a very funny thing. It was that maybe we land. Sometimes people will land up at your house at the wrong time. है ना मतलब आपका 1 o'clock lunch time and we'll bring the bell at 12:30, correct? And typically in cities you would have cooked for like 4 or 5 people. Now you get hungry at 1:10. Now 1:10 your आपका conflict शुरू हो गया कि ये जाके खाओ. Should I have a meal after they leave? You cannot invite them for the meal because there is not enough and it will take another hour and a half to prepare. Should I ask them, have you had food and come? Or should I tell them you keep sitting and I'll have food in the kitchen and come out? तीन चार options सामने आ जाता है. We were at somebody's house that way and we saw a very funny thing happening. One by one the family members would go into the kitchen, eat and come out wiping their hands. They would go on one by one, take a circle and they came out about 4 of them. And the people that I had gone with, which was my family, didn't get the message. They should have said, okay, we'll come back some other day. They continued to talk with whoever was in front of them. I forget where and when this happened. But it didn't happen. I remember that this thing. I remember those people coming out wiping their mouth and hand after eating. So sometimes it's also a cultural thing. Yeah. There's also difference in the way it happens in the city and in the village, right? One of our friends we won't take any pro and against stances here in this workshop because everything is a shade. We'll talk of what is real and then you can get a shade of what is close to reality and what is further away from it. Like who's more cultured, people in the village or people in the cities? क्या लगता है? Who's more civil? सभ्यता किसमें ज्यादा है, विलेज के लोगों में कि सिटी के लोगों में? क्या well culture? Where are you more likely to get fed? If you land in a village at lunchtime or if you land in a city person's house at lunchtime? Probability किधर ज्यादा है? In the village. There is something in that culture that you lose when you come to the city. I've never thought of it very extensively. And like my brother has an apartment opposite my house and there is a guard there and there is somebody else who's a caretaker. And if I'm passing by and if it is lunchtime and he has his kitchen open, he'll say, "Aaiye sir, खाइए." It's something about the culture where if you're eating, you will not eat alone. If somebody is walking around you at lunchtime, and if I sit, I know he'll let me eat his lunch along with him. Of course, I politely refuse because I'm usually I've had my fill or I don't want to have his tiffin. So that just doesn't mean that they're prosperous, but it just shows there is a difference in. But what's more comfortable? What's more comforting when somebody calls you for lunch or somebody waits for you to go away and then has their lunch? As a human, what is more comforting or inviting? When he calls you for lunch. And that happens if you're traveling by train, the chances that somebody will share that meal with you is higher in the sleeper class or in second AC. In sleeper class. In second AC, nobody wants to share their food with you. They don't want to see your face also. वो तो घुसते ही साथ ऊपर चले जाता है ना? हम लोग अभी सेकंड एसी से आए तो मैसूर से. Nobody asked us anything. We never spoke. We don't know their name. So that's another thing. I mean, it's not. There's also this cultural side to humans. There is this feeling. No, I'm not saying it's related to money. I'm only saying that because the specific example was about eating. I'm also just killing time before we reach lunchtime, before I start a new topic. That's also what I'm doing. We also got to know that there was some issue with the gas burner today, so they've had to go back to the town to get a replacement, or somebody was going to come. So lunch may be a little delayed. So we can't get up and go even if you want to go. There's no food on the other side. They'll let us know as soon as it is done. So till the material dimension kicks in, we are left with the intellectual dimension. We have to continue to think. Just take the mic also, yeah. You'll have to turn on the mic also. Not just hold it.
So when I have a certain experience, so out of the three, intellectual, behavior, and material, so I get a happiness in that material pocket, but I still have some conflict in intellectual. So still, can I say that I'm happy, and also can I tell I can be contented only when all three pockets are in sync?
You're partial. So you don't have contentment, yeah, but you have happiness. If you want to really, really break it down, you can say you are one third happy. Okay? I'll write this down and we'll cover it when. So when we're saying happiness, happiness is what you experience. This is called sukh. So in happiness, one kind of happiness is what comes from ruchi. I'll write the word ruchi because it is a nicer term. It's called like based happiness, yeah, interest based happiness. So ruchi. So what is ruchi? So in ruchi you are going to have three. One ruchi A. So let us say you have happiness of type ruchi. In this is 1A from the body or the senses, 1B from the things and objects, 1C from having done some good work. Okay, like you made a good meal, आपने हलवा बनाया and it turned out the way you thought it should come out. It gives you some 50. Okay, somebody ate it and appreciated it. That's an additional 50. Somebody ate it and didn't say anything. You're still left with the first one. The fact that it turned out nice. But if the second expectation था the fellow will say something, कुछ बोला ही नहीं, खा के चले गया. My mother made halwa for somebody who had come. I still remember he had come from Tanjore, which is a place down south, southern Tamil Nadu, and he was the brother of our guy downstairs. So he had come from the village. उसको खाने पे बुलाया. I called him home. So my mother had made pakoda and gajar ka halwa for that person. I was in maybe class 7 or 8. I was serving. I would help my mother serve. He first ate the pakoda and he said it's so salty. Okay. Then he ate the sugar and then he said in Tamil, he said there is so much of sugar, it's like janjanahat kar raha hai. I got so bugged with that fellow because I'd seen my mother working for an hour to cook for that guy. So there is, so you will still be left with this one. So this is one type of happiness ka one part aapko mila, which is ruchi mulak aswadan. This is called ruchi mulak tasting. One kind of happiness that you experience. उसके three sources हैं. One you can get from the body and the senses, again from the body from good food, sleep or coitus. Right? These are different experiences. Again, all these are three distinct experiences. Satiation from fulfilling your food, getting rid of physical pressure or tension that builds up in the body due to hormonal changes, and also the satisfaction that comes from a good night's sleep. Yeah, that's your mother. Your mother. Yeah, should pick up your mother-in-law's phone. It's a good thing. Okay, so that's one kind of taste. So in sensory happiness, you have three sources. One source is the body with its four. It's called Vishayas. We'll talk of it. Ahar, Nidra, Bhayan, Maithun. This is called Maithun. Coitus is called Maithun. The second is Indriya Sukh. So this is called so this is called Vishaya Sukh. This is Indriya Sukh. So that you get from the five senses. listening to good music. I told you when that tractor guy, he's listening to good music and he's working. Okay, seeing a nice scenery. You go traveling, यहाँ अच्छा लग रहा है. It's green everywhere. We like the green. So good for the eyes, good for the smell. So people use agarbatti, they use perfumes, they use all kinds of things to kind of nice. Maybe they also smell themselves when they feel nice. What they forget is nobody else wants to smell them. And when you put on perfume, you like the smell, but nobody wants to smell your perfume and your body scent. दूसरे को थोड़ी सूंघना रहता है. It's usually a mixed scent, right? We'll come to that. But when we use deodorant and perfume, after some time it gets mixed with our body odor. Who will want to smell your body odor mixed with some perfume? Nobody wants to smell it. Because some people, I remember when we were in school, we had a teacher, I still remember, her name was Mrs. Nazareth, second grade. You would know if Mrs. Nazareth had walked by the hall because her smell would linger on for 15 minutes. She would bear so much of perfume. You would know which teacher has walked by smelling the air in that corridor. Okay, so the five senses: listening to good music, tasting good food, sleeping on a water bed, feeling comfortable. One moment. I have to move from society to family. घर का call. Okay, so you will still get this. So you can still have food, the satiation of food, but not the taste that you wanted. If you want to really go bottom up, this is the way to break up. So you will still have this, or the happiness that comes from a good night's sleep. Nobody can deny you that. Whether you are rich or poor, the satisfaction from good sleep is available to every human being. And उतना ही मिलेगा. Even if you are a billionaire, 8 घंटे नींद का सुख उतना ही मिलेगा. It will be the same. The quotient of satisfaction is going to be the same. It's not going to be more. Irrespective you are a billionaire, good looking, bad looking, any looking, the satisfaction quotient from coitus or physical contact is going to be the same. No change. Yeah? Fear. Fear can also be a source for happiness. Bungee jumping. पेट में जो गुदगुली होता है, you feel afraid and then you make it into happiness. How was it? He says it was crazy. Why would you want to do something crazy and get happy? The thrill of driving fast on a two-wheeler, on a car, on racing, formula, F1, F2, F3, F4, bungee jumping, climbing up Mount Everest, almost dying and coming back. बहुत मजा क्या अरे यार वो that bear had come and it was very thrilling. This is about thrill. Usually children like that. As you grow older, you don't want thrill. When I was in my 20s, I traveled. We traveled to near Ladakh. A friend of mine, both of us quit our jobs and we walked out. When I quit, and we went to Ladakh. And I remember in Ladakh, there was this block of ice, basically a glacier. The water was melting and flowing, and both of us took a challenge. Let's dip in that water. Basically, it's water below freezing, not freezing, it was flowing because of sunlight. Oh my God, it's like 1,000 pins pricking you at the same time. Both of us jumped into it and came out howling. Right? We came out shouting because, and then we said, "Bahut maja aaya." I'm 45 today. I don't want to touch cold water. I want warm water. I don't want to go anywhere close to. I don't want to do anything. Why would I want to do that? Why would I put myself to that experience? I don't want to do that. I just like to stay warm. So it changes with the body. So some of the thrills that we want from the body changes. Similar to also coitus. As you grow older, the need just reduces. When you are younger, in your 20s, is when it's maximum, right? 18 to 25, 30. Abhi of course, intellectually, we have so many images in our mind that it's changing. But if you see naturally, वो बदलते जाता है, अपने आप ही बदलता है. Which is why for those people, and we've not come to that section, for those cultures or people जिनके लिए this is very important, they try to maximize this through life. वो होता नहीं है. That's why you have to keep changing partners. Because you will get bored with physical contact with the same partner. No? Because the partner is also growing old. They're also getting bored. You have to keep changing partners. which is the case, thankfully, I mean, not so much in this country, abhi ho hi raha hai in our metro cities and the more the so-called advanced and all that, right? So this is happiness of type 1A, Vishay Sukh. Type 1B, Indriya Sukh. Type 1C, Vastu, thing. Type 1D, from good work. The satisfaction of having done something. That's typically with the karmendriya, when you do something with your hands and feet, growing something, cooking something, maintaining something, you fix the fan in your house, you clean your own car, you fix a broken cycle, you feel good. And they're all four distinct. One cannot replace the other. So that's still there with you. But this is another one. This aswadan, this happiness, second part is through feeling. Even there, it is impossible to feel bad about everybody. There will be somebody that you have a good feeling with. Take instance or some old memory. So even if it's not available today, I try to get this feeling from memory. I think of your grandmother, grandfather. Somebody has been nice to us at some point in time, right? It's impossible that you have a problem with every individual that you come up with. So this is happiness type 2. This is called Mulya Mula Kaswadan in the actual, literature. But basically value based tasting. And there is a third kind of tasting, happiness, which we derive, which I'm going to write up here. My board work has become really untidy. Which is purpose-based tasting, purpose-based happiness. For example, in this workshop, all of us are sitting here. Are you feeling kind of fine or are you having like a terrible time since yesterday? Is it like a horrible, terrible time? Is it like unbearable or you think it's kind of okay? It's kind of okay. This is why you're still sitting, right? Is it to do with anything sensory? Is it because you are getting some great sensory gratification? You're getting better. Most of you probably couldn't sleep here. There's a new room. The bed may not have suited you. As you grow older, all this starts making a difference. The pillow may have been too hard, too soft. Maybe the sheet wasn't long enough. There's been something that has disturbed your usual, comfort zone when it comes to the body. Is it this? Is it because I'm being very nice to you? I'm like the nicest person you ever met, which is probably not the case. Or is it because you are getting some input which is to do with your life's purpose, which you feel is interesting or intriguing? Out of the three, which is it? 1, 2, or 3? It's 3. It's 3, and it doesn't matter that you agree with me or you don't agree with me. Because like I said, you have to and you should try and disagree with everything I'm saying. Okay? Which is how you'll be able to test whether it's true or not. But so you can get 1, maybe 1A, maybe B and C and D. So we try and live our life trying to be. So this is one level of our experience. This is experiential. This is when we are actually doing things. We'll understand that this arises from a place called the man in the activity chart in us. We'll open up this mind into its constituent faculties of what it constitutes. The man does not have a translation in English. Man rhymes with mind, but man is not mind. Mind is something else. One aspect of the mind is called the man, of the self. So this is our experiential, level of being. Yeah. So to answer your query, you can have one and not have the other. That will still be there. So inner conflict can be suspended for some time when you meet an old friend from school and college who's not thinking ki main kaun hu, kahan se aaya, but you're just recollecting old memories and it feels good. Till the time the interaction lasts. That's the thing with the experiential domain. That interaction has to continue. Once it stops, it's gone. जैसे ये पर्पस बेस्ड टेस्टिंग है till I'm making all the effort and you just have to ingrain, you have the luxury of listening and not listening, of sleeping and waking up and nodding off and walking in and walking out because it's experiential. But when you have to make it into your mind, then you can't be nodding off because you're running away from yourself. No, you have to make the effort to take it into yourself. Okay, so there are three major functions in us, activities in us. What is the man is basically the experiential level, what we really experience with the external world. Most of us inhabit this space. In fact, most of us are only familiar with the material part. बाकी दो भी दूर लगता है. The relationships and purpose वगैरह किसको फुर्सत है? Who has the time to think about purpose? है यार, don't make life so complicated. Keep it simple. What is simple? आहार निद्रा भय मैथुन है ना. Food, sleep, coitus, अच्छा खाना, बैंक में पैसा, मजा मार. That's the end of life. So people who say keep life simple are basically saying that their life is over here. But the fact of the matter is, this may be band bajri, na? There is a problem here, but they are not aware of it. Once they become aware of it, they cannot become unaware of it. That is the problem. That's the way consciousness works. I gave you the example of the snake in the room. Once you become aware that I need to know my purpose of life, you cannot now become unaware of it. You can postpone it, by busying ourselves with certain things. मैं समाज को ठीक करूंगा, I will plant some trees, but it will come back in a few years. It will come back to haunt you, saying, who the hell are you? And then you've got that's the problem. Yeah.
आउट ऑफ दिस 4 एस्पेक्ट्स जो हम 4 विषय के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, आउट ऑफ दिस 4 nobody desires for this third one, that is fear, because that is not a common human desire. That comes naturally, that is a different
It
thing.
comes naturally. So, yeah, you're right. So, you will actually see that these 4 exist in animals. So, 1A exists in animals. 1B, 1C, and 1D don't exist in animals. So, fear is actually an instinct that we have, and when we see it, it's actually not. We'll talk of something called the self. For those who have done the workshop before, will be a little familiar with it. Consciousness and what is consciousness and what is the nature of the self, etc. The aspect of fear actually comes from the body. It's a part of the brain. For instance, if you are, let us say, this is a cliff, okay? नीचे आप खड़े हैं, आपको पूरा resolution है, पूरा understanding, and पीछे से I come and try to push you. What will be your instinctive reaction? What will you do? You will try and not fall. You're not going to say, I'm in the spiritual plane, my Atma Amar hai, it doesn't matter if I die or not, मैं नीचे गिर जाऊंगा, I was anyways never born, I will never die. वो सब थियरी आता है क्या उस समय? नहीं आता है, कुछ नहीं आता है. Protection. Yeah, it is in the brain for protection of the body. It is how animals operate. कुत्ते को देखें, dogs are instinctively fearful. They will, some of them can be aggressive if you go into their territory. But the first thing an animal sees is to run, basically self-protection. And that's like a basic need in us. And we'll see, that it is to do with an aspect of ourself called the will to live. That we want to live. We don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. If you want to die, you want to die peacefully. You don't want to die a hard death. And you definitely don't, if life exists after death, you don't want hell. And you definitely don't want this life again. इसमें तो बैंड बज गई यार. Let me have a better one next time. The fear will kick in. The fear will kick in. So, but that's the thing, that in humans and animals it behaves. So in modern parlance they call it fight or flight. You will either fight or you will run. Each animal does it. Each animal has this fight or flight mode. Flight का मतलब भागना. Fight का मतलब लड़ना. So if a dog is barking at you, उसका एक sense है. The moment you pick up the डंडा, उसका flight होता है. Till then वो boss है. डंडा देख के भाग जाता है. वो flight है. हमारा भी ऐसा ही है. जब तक हमारी चलती है, till ours works, we are aggressive. The moment that fellow removes, Amitabh Bachchan removes a revolver, everybody runs away. For some of us, it is a source for happiness. We try to derive happiness. That is thrill. It's usually in childhood, like I said. When we were young, we would go to my grandfather's village. It's very similar to this. All villages in India look the same. So big agricultural wealth. So we would jump from the top of the, motor pump building. So it's about 10, 20 feet, and we would howl and fall in. I don't think I have the guts to do that again. I don't want to jump. I am happy having a bath in the bathroom now. I don't want to go back into the well. But we did that when we were young. So we would use the sense of fear to derive thrill. This is one kind of happiness. The typical thing is little kids. Merry-go-round में घूमते ना छोटे बच्चे. Some of them like it, but some of them hate it. My daughter hates going round. She can never go in a giant wheel. Because her body is from the body. So these 4 are from the body. They're closest to the body. food, fear, coitus and sleep. उसका next layer है senses. The layer after that are the things we own, जिसको use का happiness है. And the second is the prestige to do that. Then उसमें relationship angle आ गया. The third factor is come. I have an iPhone, so I will not hide the पीछे का Apple. Anybody who has an iPhone, make sure that the Apple is visible. जबकि उससे उसका usage is not increasing, right? It's the fact that somebody else will recognize me for having that brand. So it is the happiness that I, the respect and recognition that I want in society for having owned that. Whereas in eating, we don't want a bitten apple. Nobody would want a half-eaten apple. Why would you want a bitten apple? झूठा apple कोई नहीं खाता. They say that it was given to Steve Jobs by a sannyasi from India called Neem Karoli Baba. When Steve Jobs met him, the story goes that Neem Karoli Baba bit an apple and gave it to him. When Steve Jobs went back with his business idea to the US, he decided he'd make that bitten apple the sign of his brand. That's how Apple was born. So bitten by an Indian sadhu. उसका झूठा है. Yeah, some general info. It's all general info. You know? That you get ये सब phone से कुछ कुछ आता है. And okay, so that's the thing. So when we look at prosperity, what really is prosperity? Prosperity is the contentment, the thrifty of either having or producing more, or the confidence that I can produce more material things that are required. So prosperity is to do with the feeling of having more in the material domain than is needed. So what is the condition for that? The condition for that is I need to know how much I need. तभी तो ज्यादा का पता चलेगा. I need to know how many material things I need. So out of the things that I need to know how much, what is material, what is behavioral, what is intellectual, what is spiritual. And then in the material dimension, I need to know how much is needed. Then I know I'll have more. How many people here feel they have more money than they need? ज्यादा हो गया पैसा. 1, 2, 3, 4. है ना? Now that ज्यादा is based on some line that you've drawn. Like my father's a government pension. I keep telling him the government can make your pension half. It's double of what you need because he's wasting the rest. He and his friend said, "Oh, Bhutan घूमने गए." 30 years ago, a retired government pensioner would not dream of traveling in AC. Forget going to a foreign country. वो भूटान घूमे, कैम्बोडिया घूमे, मैं आज तक नहीं गया, है ना? And then he stopped. So there was so much of extra pension, they were just spending it. So we'll inquire. We will also launch we'll make this inquiry of how much it is that we really need. What is the meaning of a necessity? And is it like living with the bare minimum? Is it like, what is it? Live simply and think highly, or is it live adequately and think properly? है ना? लोग बोलते हैं ना सिंपल लिविंग. क्या बोलते हैं? सिंपल लिविंग, हाई थिंकिंग. कोई करता नहीं. व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ सिंपल लिविंग? सबका सिंपल अलग है. एवरीबडी सिंपल इज डिफरेंट, राइट? So, but there's another beautiful definition of this: the absence of material things. तो समझ में आता है? It's a double negation. अभाव का अभाव. In Hindi, you will call it abhav ka abhav. The absence of the feeling of absence. So it's basically the presence that there is more. So in our discussion of prosperity, we did take this. So do you think nature is more than how much we need or less than how much we need? So when the question is put on nature, we find the abundance पहले से है. There are more plants than you can ever use or eat. There are more animals than you can ever eat. Possibly नहीं है. अभी animal खाना नहीं खाना से different issue. But more sheep than wool that you can possibly use. More gold and lithium than you can possibly ever use. People buy gold, but it's impossible to hang so much. If everybody wore all the jewelry they have, they won't be able to walk. You can't use it. It's sitting somewhere. It's not possible. You can't breathe all the air that is there. You can't use up all the water that is there. Nature is already in abundance. And that is true not just for us. Yeah. 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 But when we translate into the things that humans consume, then we have the notion of poverty. Because then once you think of things, then everybody's list is going to be different. So there are some basic needs. For example, food, clothing, shelter, roti, kapda, makan. पुराना हिंदी पिक्चर ना, गरीबी हटाओ भारत सरकार का, रोटी कपड़ा मकान. Then what is it? बिजली, पानी, सड़क, शिक्षा and toilet. What is it called? ग्राम स्वच्छ ग्राम अभियान, something like that. स्वच्छ भारत अभियान, but ग्राम में स्वच्छता, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर. Cleanliness is also basic. So the government builds toilets in everybody. They don't want everybody to poop outside. When I went to Odisha 20 years ago, the government had built a lot of toilets. I found that all the toilets were choked with stones and leaves. So I asked the guy there why. It was interior Odisha, so I had to trek for 2 hours to reach that village. I said, why did this happen? He said, यहाँ के tribals जो है, they're not used to using water. They use leaves and little pieces of stone. So they sat in the toilet, they used the stone and leaves, वो choke हो गया. The commode was choked. So now they keep their goats inside and they still go outside. In another village, when I asked them why is he not using it, why is he tied his sheep and goat and the cow inside? He said, "Oh, बोलता है, if I don't sit in the wide open, निकलता ही नहीं है. It doesn't come out. If he has a roof, he can't shit. He has to see the sky and then it comes out. It's like his large intestine listens to the blue sky or something." So when it comes to things, there are some basic things. There is food, clothing, shelter. Maybe today a phone is a necessity. What was a luxury yesterday is a necessity today. Only the big, Bollywood stars could have a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. Ambani ji made sure all of us got hooked to the internet because he basically made it free. है ना, क्या कर लो दुनिया मुट्ठी में. Remember there was a Geo line before when the senior Ambani was there, he died there. So what is a necessity and then when does it become a luxury? And somebody's luxury is somebody else's necessity. So उसमें you'll see. So when it comes to the things that human beings make, okay, then there is a question of prosperity or not, more or less. But in nature, by itself, nature is prosperous. And for the survival of the human body, nature में already है. You have to figure out, as a human, you have to figure out how to eat. You may not be able to eat chiku and because horticulture was not developed, but you survive. People survive. They pluck things, they did some basic farming, they do some basic meat. But humans don't stop there because we have sensory impulses, we have the ability of imagination. So we try to make the food tastier, then we boiled it, then we put masala, then we put tandoori masala, then we mix it with that, then we added some chaat, फिर उसको plate में डाला, उसमें दही चाट बना, भाई भल्ला बना, पापड़ी चाट बना, करते करते now you have like what, at least 1,000 dishes that we consume in the world. Safe to say that at least 1,000. 1,000 तो होगा ना world में dishes. Yeah. I mean, in the cities, in Bangalore, Pune, if you want to go out to eat, it's very confusing because you have to first pick the cuisine, the region of the world, then the cuisine, then which mix. Then you have Indo-Chinese, Indo-Italian, plain Italian, French. पहला cuisine pick करो उस time. It's very confusing. Then if you are both Atarian, then you have to choose veg, non-veg, how much of non-veg, pure veg, pure non-veg, mixed veg, non-veg, इधर से लगा उधर, ऐसा करते करते ज़्यादा confused. So people have continued that because of our ability of imagination and we study that. So nature by itself is prosperous. Human needs that keep changing over time. Now then the problem of wealth, prosperity and economics keeps changing. But by itself nature is prosperous. Lunch break हो गया? As much needed, we'll come back to that. Like for example, test it during the meal today. If everybody here is going to eat 2 rotis, and they count the number of people and keep the exact number of rotis, and when the last guy picks it up, he picks up the last roti, is that more satisfying? उसके बाद भी 2 रोटी बच गया, is that more satisfying? Test it now. कि खाने के बाद there is some leftover, or you had to take the last bit and grind away the last bit of dal, करके last morsel of dal you took. Let's do it now and then come back and talk about it.